Welcome to WooEnglish, where we help you learn English through engaging stories. Our tale today is a captivating detective drama titled The Unveiling, Detective Walker and the Kennedy Case. This story is specially designed with clear and simple sentences, making it ideal for improving your English comprehension and vocabulary. As you follow Detective Walker on his intriguing journey to unravel the mystery of President Kennedy's assassination, you'll not only enhance your language skills, but also enjoy a compelling narrative full of suspense and intrigue. Let's dive into the world of Detective Walker and explore the twists and turns of this historic case. Chapter 1. The Fateful Day. It was a bright morning in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd, 1963. The sun shone brightly in a clear blue sky. People from all around the city and even from far-off places were gathering. They were excited to see a very important person, President John Kennedy. John Kennedy was not just any president. He was known for his charm and his inspiring speeches. People loved him, and they were eager to catch a glimpse of him as he rode through their city. On the streets of Dallas, flags waved in the gentle breeze. Children and adults, all dressed in their best clothes, lined the roads. They held banners and signs that read, "Welcome President Kennedy," and "We love JFK." The atmosphere was electric, filled with happiness and anticipation. The president was scheduled to ride in a motorcade. A motorcade is a procession of vehicles, and this one was special because it would carry the president. He would be in an open-top car so everyone could see him. People talked excitedly about this, feeling lucky to have such an opportunity. In a building downtown, Detective James Walker was also preparing for the day. He was in charge of making sure everything went smoothly during the president's visit. Walker had been a detective for many years and had seen many things. But today was different. It was a big responsibility. As the morning turned into noon, the crowd grew. People checked their watches and cameras, waiting. Then the moment arrived. The motorcade turned the corner, and there he was. President Kennedy, with his wife Jackie, waved to the crowd. The people cheered loudly, their faces beaming with joy. The car moved slowly, giving everyone a chance to see the president. He smiled and waved, looking relaxed and happy. Jackie, beside him, was elegant and graceful. It was a beautiful sight, and everyone wanted to remember this moment forever. But then, something terrible happened. 3 loud sounds, like gunshots, rang through the air. Confusion followed. People screamed and ran. The joy turned into fear and disbelief. In the chaos, Walker sprang into action. He ran towards the president's car. His heart was racing. What he saw next was a scene he would never forget. President Kennedy had been shot. The president, who just moments ago was smiling and waving, was now in grave danger. The motorcade rushed away, heading to the hospital. Walker stood there amidst the chaos, trying to process what had just happened. The city of Dallas, which was just moments ago full of joy and excitement, was now filled with shock and sadness. The news spread quickly. Television and radio broadcasts interrupted their programs to announce the tragic news. "President John Kennedy has been shot in Dallas, Texas," they said. People everywhere were stunned. How could this happen? Why would anyone want to hurt the president? For Detective Walker, this was no longer just a day of celebration. It had turned into a day of tragedy and a big mystery. Who shot President Kennedy? Why did they do it? These were the questions he needed to answer. And he knew this was going to be the biggest case of his life. As the sun set on Dallas, the city was in mourning. The president, the leader of the nation, had been taken from them in a moment of violence. It was a day that would be remembered forever. And for Detective Walker, it was the beginning of a long and difficult journey to find the truth. This day, November 22nd, 1963, marked the start of one of the most famous investigations in history. The investigation into the assassination of President John Kennedy. And at the heart of it all was Detective James Walker, determined to solve the mystery. Chapter 2. Shockwaves. The news of President Kennedy's assassination spread like wildfire across the nation. From the busy streets of New York to the quiet towns of the Midwest, everyone was talking about it. Radios and televisions in homes, shops, and offices all announced the tragic news. People stopped what they were doing, unable to believe what they had heard. In homes across America, families sat in front of their televisions, watching the news in shock. Some people cried, some sat in stunned silence, and others whispered in disbelief. The president, loved and admired by so many, had been taken from them in a moment of horror. In Washington, D.C., government officials hurriedly gathered. There was confusion and fear. The president was not just a leader, he was a symbol of the country's stability and strength. His sudden death left a void, and there were many questions. Who was behind this? Was it an attack on the country? What would happen next? Meanwhile, back in Dallas, Detective James Walker was in a state of turmoil. He had been close to the president's motorcade when the shots were fired. Now, he was given the task of leading the investigation into Kennedy's assassination. This was a huge responsibility. The eyes of the nation, even the world, were on him. Detective Walker was a seasoned investigator. He had solved many complex cases in his career. But this was different. This was not just a crime. It was an attack on the president, an attack on the country. He knew he had to act quickly and carefully. As he started his investigation, Walker faced many challenges. The crime scene was chaotic. Thousands of people had been there, and now they were all potential witnesses. But with so many people, getting clear information was difficult. Everyone was upset, and their accounts were confused and varied. Moreover, there was enormous pressure from the government and the public. People wanted answers, and they wanted them fast. But Walker knew that a hasty investigation could lead to mistakes. He needed to be thorough and precise. The first step was to secure the crime scene. The place where the shots were fired, a building called the Texas School Book Depository, was now the focus. Inside, the police found a rifle. Was this the weapon used to kill the president? They also found 3 bullet casings. These could be crucial evidence. As Walker examined these items, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. A president had been killed, and it was his job to find out who was responsible. He thought about Kennedy, about his family, and about the country in mourning. This was more than just a case. It was a tragedy. Walker also knew that time was against him. The longer the investigation took, the harder it would be to find the truth. Witnesses' memories could fade, evidence could be lost, and the public's need for answers could lead to rumors and false accusations. In the days that followed, the investigation intensified. Walker and his team worked day and night. They interviewed witnesses, gathered evidence, and tried to piece together the events of that fateful day. But as they delved deeper into the case, they realized that this was no ordinary crime. There were layers of complexity and mystery. The more they uncovered, the more questions they had. Who was the shooter? Was Lee Harvey Oswald, the man arrested for the crime, really the one responsible? Or was there more to the story? These were the questions that haunted Walker as he tried to solve the puzzle of Kennedy's assassination. As the chapter closes, Detective Walker is determined to find the truth, no matter how difficult the path may be. He knows that the world is watching, waiting for answers, and he is committed to delivering them. The investigation into the assassination of President John Kennedy is just beginning, and Detective James Walker is at the heart of it. Chapter 3. The Hunt Begins. Detective James Walker stood in his office staring at the map of Dallas on the wall. The streets where the tragedy unfolded were marked in red. It was here that the hunt for the truth began. The pressure was immense. The nation, still in shock, looked to him for answers. The first step was to gather evidence. Every piece was crucial. The rifle and bullet casings found at the Texas School Book Depository were sent for analysis. Experts would check if they matched the bullets that hit the president. Walker then turned to the witnesses. There were hundreds of people in Dealey Plaza that day. Each one had a story, a piece of the puzzle. Interviewing them was a colossal task. Walker's team worked tirelessly, recording every statement. Some witnesses talked about a man they saw in the window of the depository. Others spoke of strange men loitering around the plaza before the shots were fired. There were so many different stories, some contradicting each other. Walker knew that in this sea of information, lies and truth were intertwined. Amidst the chaos, one name kept coming up: Lee Harvey Oswald. He worked at the depository and was missing after the shooting. Later, he was arrested for killing a police officer. Was he the assassin, or just a man in the wrong place at the wrong time? Walker wanted to meet Oswald, to look into his eyes and ask him why. But before he could, Oswald was killed. Jack Ruby, a nightclub owner, shot him in front of live television cameras. This turn of events stunned the nation and complicated the case. Now, the prime suspect was dead, and Walker had more questions than answers. The detective knew he had to dig deeper into Oswald's life. Who was this man? A loner? A patriot? A madman? Or a pawn in a bigger game? His team started gathering information about Oswald, his background, his family, his movements before the assassination. Meanwhile, the public's impatience grew. People wanted to know who killed their president and why. Conspiracy theories began to emerge. Some said it was the work of a foreign government. Others believed it was an inside job. The theories were many, but Walker needed facts. He spent long hours at the office, poring over evidence, trying to connect the dots. The walls were covered with photos and notes. Each piece of evidence seemed like a small part of a vast, unknown picture. Walker also kept an eye on the media. The newspapers and television were full of stories about the assassination. Some were helpful, but others were misleading. The detective had to separate fact from fiction, a challenging task in a time of national crisis. As days turned into weeks, the investigation continued. Walker visited the scene of the crime again and again. He walked the route of the motorcade, stood in the window of the depository, and tried to see through the assassin's eyes. What was he thinking? Why did he choose that spot? The answers were elusive. Every night, Walker went home tired but determined. He knew he was not just solving a crime. He was writing a chapter in history, a chapter filled with sorrow, mystery, and a quest for justice. In this chapter of his life, Walker was more than a detective. He was a guardian of the truth, and he would not rest until he found it. The hunt for the assassin of President Kennedy was not just a case for him. It was a mission, a promise to a nation in mourning. The journey was long and hard, but Walker was ready. The hunt had just begun. Chapter 4. A Trail of Clues. In the heart of Dallas, Detective James Walker was deep in thought. The Texas School Book Depository, a large red-brick building, stood as a silent witness to the tragedy. It was here that a significant clue had been discovered: a rifle. Walker examined the rifle closely in the police lab. It was an Italian-made Carcano, a type of rifle known for its accuracy. The discovery of this weapon was a major breakthrough, but questions lingered in Walker's mind. Who did it belong to? How did it end up in the depository? Alongside the rifle, 3 bullet casings were found. These small pieces of metal could speak volumes. They were sent for ballistic tests to see if they matched the bullets that struck the president. Walker waited anxiously for the results. If the casings matched, they had a direct link to the assassin. Back at his office, Walker pored over photographs of the crime scene. The window from where the shots were believed to have been fired offered a clear view of the motorcade route. It was an ideal spot for an ambush. But who had the skill and motive to carry out such an act? The detectives' team was also making progress. They had gathered a list of employees who worked in the depository. Each one was being interviewed. Oswald's name was at the top of the list. He had been seen in the building that morning, but now, with his untimely death, he could not answer the burning questions. Walker also focused on the timeline of events. Every second before and after the assassination was crucial. Where was Oswald before the shooting? How did he leave the scene so quickly? These details could help build a picture of what happened. As he delved deeper, Walker found himself in a maze of information. There were reports of Oswald's movements, accounts of his behavior, and records of his past. Each piece was a clue, leading Walker down different paths. One path led to Oswald's past. He had lived in Russia for a while and had a history of supporting controversial causes. But did this make him a killer? Or was he simply a troubled man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time? Another path took Walker into the world of espionage and politics. There were rumors of Oswald being connected to various groups, each with their own agendas. Could one of these connections explain the assassination? Walker's days were long and exhausting. Each night, he went home with a mind full of theories and facts, trying to piece together the puzzle. But the answers seemed just out of reach. The investigation was not just about finding the killer. It was about understanding the motive. Why would someone want to kill the president? Was it an act of madness, revenge, or a calculated political move? In the midst of this, Walker faced pressure from all sides. The public wanted answers, the media was relentless, and the government demanded quick results. But Walker knew that a rushed investigation could lead to wrong conclusions. He had to be careful, methodical, and thorough. As the chapter closes, Walker looks at the rifle and the bullet casings once again. These were the tangible pieces of a puzzle that was complex and shadowy. He knew that the path ahead was difficult and uncertain. But he was determined to follow the trail of clues wherever it led. The truth was out there, and he would find it, no matter the cost. For Detective James Walker, the journey into the heart of one of history's greatest mysteries had just begun. Chapter 5. Shadow of Doubt. The investigation into the assassination of President Kennedy was now in full swing, and at the center of it all was a man named Lee Harvey Oswald. Detective James Walker, burdened with the task of unraveling this complex case, had many questions for Oswald. Oswald was an enigmatic figure. His past was a tapestry of unusual events and decisions. He had defected to the Soviet Union once, only to return to the United States with a Russian wife. His political views were controversial, and his behavior often erratic. Walker, with years of experience in reading people, prepared to meet Oswald. In the interrogation room, Oswald sat across from him, a picture of calmness that seemed at odds with the situation. Walker began by asking basic questions, trying to gauge Oswald's demeanor. As the interrogation progressed, Walker's initial certainty about Oswald's guilt began to waver. Oswald's answers were firm, and he maintained his innocence. He claimed to be a patsy, a person falsely accused of a crime they didn't commit. Was this the truth, or was he a skilled liar? Walker delved into Oswald's activities before the assassination, his movements, his interactions, and his motives. But the more he learned, the more the waters muddied. Oswald was certainly a man of contradictions, but was he a murderer? The detective faced a dilemma. The evidence against Oswald was compelling. He worked at the depository. He owned a rifle similar to the one found, and he had a history of radical beliefs. But evidence alone does not prove guilt. Walker needed more, something concrete to link Oswald directly to the crime. As Walker continued his investigation, he uncovered more about Oswald's life. His time in the Marines, his defection to the Soviet Union, and his outspoken support for Fidel Castro. Oswald was a man who seemed to be constantly searching for something, a cause to believe in, a place to belong. But did this make him capable of assassination? Walker wasn't sure. There were still too many unanswered questions, too many missing pieces. The picture of Oswald that was emerging was complex and confusing. Walker also had to consider other possibilities. What if Oswald was not acting alone? What if he was part of a larger conspiracy? The idea was daunting, but not impossible. The stakes were high, and Walker knew that every possibility had to be explored. Throughout the investigation, Walker felt the pressure mounting. The nation was watching, waiting for answers. The media was full of theories and speculations, each more sensational than the last. But Walker remained focused on the facts, on the evidence. As the chapter comes to a close, Walker is left with more doubts than when he started. Oswald, the prime suspect, is a puzzle in himself. Is he the cold-blooded assassin of President Kennedy, or is he just a man caught in the crossfire of history? Walker knew that finding the answer would not be easy, but he was determined to uncover the truth, no matter where it led him. The shadow of doubt cast by Oswald's story only deepened the mystery, and Walker was ready to delve deeper into the heart of this unprecedented case. Chapter 6. A Turn of Events. The investigation into President Kennedy's assassination took a shocking turn. Lee Harvey Oswald, the prime suspect, was suddenly and violently removed from the equation. Detective James Walker, already deep into the complex web of this case, now faced an even more baffling scenario. It happened in an instant, yet it was broadcast live on television for the whole nation to see. Oswald was being transferred from the city jail when a man named Jack Ruby emerged from the crowd. In a flash, Ruby fired his gun, and Oswald fell to the ground, critically wounded. This unforeseen act sent ripples of shock and confusion across the country. Walker, who had been following every development closely, felt a mix of emotions: anger, frustration, and a deepening sense of intrigue. Oswald's death meant the loss of the key to unlocking many unanswered questions. Who was Oswald, really? Why did he allegedly assassinate the president? And now, why was he silenced? The detective's mind raced with possibilities. Oswald's public murder raised the stakes. It suggested that there might be more to this story, layers that were yet to be uncovered. Walker wondered, was Ruby acting alone, driven by grief or anger? Or was he part of something bigger, a plan to permanently silence Oswald? Jack Ruby was a local nightclub owner, known to have connections with various people in Dallas. But what was his motive? Was it a spontaneous act, driven by emotion, or was it calculated? Walker knew that understanding Ruby's actions was crucial to the investigation. As Walker delved into Ruby's background, he discovered a man with complex connections. Ruby's acquaintances ranged from police officers to questionable characters. The detective wondered if any of these connections played a role in Ruby's decision to kill Oswald. The media was in a frenzy. Theories and speculations flooded the news. The public was both horrified and captivated by the turn of events. In this whirlwind of information and misinformation, Walker had to remain focused on the facts. The detective revisited the evidence with a new perspective. Oswald's death was a major blow to the investigation, but it also opened new avenues of inquiry. Walker revisited witness statements, re-examined the ballistic evidence, and scrutinized every piece of information related to both Oswald and Ruby. Walker also faced mounting pressure from the government and the public. They demanded answers, and the complexity of the case seemed to grow by the day. The detective felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He knew that the answers he sought were not just for him, but for a nation in mourning and in need of closure. As the chapter closes, Walker is seen deep in thought, surrounded by files and photographs. The investigation had taken a dramatic turn with Oswald's murder. The detective realized that this was more than a simple case of assassination. It was a puzzle with many pieces, and he was determined to put them all together. The path ahead was murky and uncertain, but Walker was committed to uncovering the truth, no matter how complex or hidden it might be. The hunt for answers continued, and Detective James Walker was at the forefront, navigating through the maze of one of history's most perplexing cases. Chapter 7. Piecing the Puzzle. In the quiet of his office, Detective James Walker sat surrounded by mountains of evidence. The case of President Kennedy's assassination had turned into a labyrinth of complexities. Now, with Oswald gone and new questions arising, Walker focused on what he had: the ballistic evidence. Ballistics is the science of what happens to bullets during and after being fired. The ballistic experts had provided their report, and it was time to dive into the details. The 3 bullet casings found in the Texas School Book Depository were matched to the rifle also found there. This was a significant piece of evidence. It linked the gun to the scene, but did it link Oswald to the shooting? Walker meticulously went over the photographs taken during the assassination. The angles, the trajectories, the positions. Every detail mattered. He needed to reconstruct the scene, to understand exactly how the events unfolded. The detective also reviewed the medical reports. The path of the bullets through the president's body would offer clues about the shooter's location. It was a grim task, but necessary. The reports were detailed, and Walker read them with a heavy heart. As he pieced together the information, a picture started to emerge. The shooter had been in the depository building. That much was clear. but the angles were puzzling. Could one shooter have fired all the shots? Or were there more people involved? Walker's mind raced with possibilities. The case was like a giant puzzle, and he was slowly fitting the pieces together. But each piece seemed to reveal more questions than answers. The detective also revisited the witness statements. Many had reported hearing shots, but their accounts varied. Some heard 3 shots, others 2, and some even 4. The echoes in the plaza made it difficult to determine the exact number. This inconsistency was a challenge, but also a clue in itself. In addition to the ballistic evidence, Walker considered Oswald's capability as a marksman. His military records showed he was a competent shooter, but not exceptional. Could he have executed such a precise and deadly act? Walker's investigation led him to explore every angle of Oswald's life. His job at the depository, his time in Russia, his political beliefs. But the more he learned, the more complex Oswald became. Was he acting alone, or was he part of a larger plot? Amidst the sea of evidence and theories, Walker felt the pressure of time. The nation wanted answers, and they wanted them now. But haste could lead to mistakes, and Walker was acutely aware of the need for thoroughness and precision. As the chapter closes, Walker sits in his office late into the night. The walls are covered with maps, photographs, and notes. He knows that the key to solving this mystery lies in understanding the events of that day in November. Each piece of evidence, each witness statement, each expert report brings him closer to the truth. The puzzle is complex, and the pieces are many, but Walker is determined to solve it. He knows that the answers are there, hidden in the details. The quest for the truth about the assassination of President Kennedy continues, and Detective James Walker is leading the charge. With each piece of the puzzle, he moves closer to uncovering what really happened on that fateful day. As we transition from Chapter 7's trials to Chapter 8's testament to partnership, we invite you to pause and reflect. Share your thoughts, leave a like, and subscribe to WooEnglish for more immersive journeys in learning English through stories. Your engagement enriches our storytelling tapestry. Chapter 8. Secrets and Lies. Detective James Walker, entrenched in the mystery of President Kennedy's assassination, turned his focus to unraveling the enigmatic life of Lee Harvey Oswald. The deeper he delved, the more he discovered a web of secrets and lies. Oswald's life was a patchwork of odd jobs, unusual travels, and peculiar associations. Walker found that before the assassination, Oswald had been involved in several activities that raised eyebrows. One of the most intriguing was his trip to Mexico City just weeks before the assassination. What was Oswald doing there? Who was he meeting? These questions hung in the air like a dense fog. Walker learned that in Mexico City, Oswald had visited the embassies of the Soviet Union and Cuba. His purpose remained unclear, but it suggested connections that could not be ignored. Oswald's interest in these countries, both at odds with the United States at the time, hinted at motives more complex than Walker had first imagined. Back in Dallas, Walker explored Oswald's links to various political groups. Oswald was known to have pro-communist leanings. He had even distributed flyers supporting Fidel Castro. But was this political activism a cover for something more sinister? The detective also discovered that Oswald's personal life was fraught with instability. His marriage was troubled, his job history erratic, and his behavior often unpredictable. This picture of Oswald's life painted a portrait of a man who was constantly searching, yet never quite finding his place in the world. Amidst these revelations, Walker faced a challenge. He had to sift through what was true and what was mere speculation. Oswald had been a man of many faces, and separating fact from fiction was a daunting task. As Walker pieced together Oswald's movements before the assassination, a pattern of deception emerged. Oswald had lied to his wife about his whereabouts, used aliases, and had secretive meetings. These actions suggested a man who was hiding something. But what? The detective's investigation was further complicated by the rampant rumours and conspiracy theories circulating in the public. Everyone had a theory about the assassination, and these theories often blurred the line between reality and fiction. Walker knew he had to stay focused on the evidence. Walker also revisited the testimonies of those who knew Oswald personally. Colleagues, friends, and family members painted a picture of a man who was often aloof, sometimes passionate about politics, and always a bit of an outsider. But none could believe he was capable of assassinating the president. As the chapter closes, Walker sits in his office, surrounded by the many faces of Lee Harvey Oswald. The walls are covered with photographs, documents, and notes. The detective realizes that to solve this case, he must not only uncover the secrets and lies of Oswald's life, but also understand the man behind them. The mystery of Oswald's true nature and his role in the assassination remained elusive. But Walker was determined to find the answers. The path was tangled with secrets and lies, but he was committed to following it to the end. The search for the truth about the assassination of President Kennedy was not just a quest for justice. It was a journey into the heart of a man whose life had become a riddle, and Detective James Walker was resolved to solve it. Chapter 9. The Witnesses. The investigation into the assassination of President Kennedy, led by Detective James Walker, was reaching a critical stage. The key to unraveling the mystery, Walker believed, lay in the testimonies of those who had witnessed the event. But as he would soon discover, the accounts of these witnesses were a tapestry of conflicting and perplexing stories. The first witness Walker interviewed was a businessman who had been standing near the motorcade route. He claimed to have heard 3 shots, all coming from the direction of the grassy knoll, a small hill in Dealey Plaza. His testimony was clear and confident. However, it directly contradicted the official report, which stated the shots came from the Texas School Book Depository. Next, Walker spoke to a school teacher who was also at the scene. She insisted that she saw a flash of light from an upper window of the depository building, suggesting a gunshot. Her story supported the official narrative, but her account of the timing of the shots differed from other reports. Walker then interviewed a young couple who had been filming the motorcade. They were sure they had seen a man lurking behind a fence on the grassy knoll, but they couldn't describe him in detail. Their camera had been running at the time of the assassination, but, frustratingly, their film did not capture the area in question. Another significant witness was a police officer who had been stationed near the depository. He reported hearing shots, but was unsure of their origin. He also mentioned seeing a man fitting Oswald's description in the building shortly before the assassination. Each witness brought a new piece of the puzzle, but they also brought new contradictions. Walker found himself sifting through a myriad of details, trying to determine which were accurate and which were misperceptions or misremembered in the chaos of the assassination. As the detective delved deeper into the witness testimonies, he realized the enormity of the challenge he faced. Human memory was fallible, and in traumatic situations like the assassination, it was even more unreliable. Each witness had a different perspective, a different angle, and a different story. Walker's team created a large chart in their office, plotting the position of each witness and their account of the event. The chart was a sea of dots, lines, and notes, reflecting the complexity of the task at hand. In his quest for the truth, Walker also had to contend with the influence of the media. The constant barrage of news reports, theories, and speculations was shaping public opinion and, in turn, affecting the memories of the witnesses. Walker knew he had to tread carefully, separating fact from influenced recollection. As the chapter closes, Detective Walker is left with more questions than answers. The testimonies of the witnesses, rather than providing clarity, had only added to the mystery. The truth about the assassination was still out there, hidden among the conflicting stories of those who had witnessed it. For Walker, the challenge was clear. He needed to find the common threads in these testimonies, the nuggets of truth that would lead him to what really happened on that fateful day. The journey was far from over, and the detective was more determined than ever to uncover the truth. Chapter 10. Crossroads. Detective James Walker found himself at a critical juncture in the investigation of President Kennedy's assassination. The path ahead was fraught with obstacles, and he felt the immense weight of political pressure and the frustration of encountering dead ends. The detective's office had become a hub of constant activity, with phones ringing and officers coming and going. Yet, amidst this bustle, Walker felt a sense of isolation. The clues he had so far were like pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit together. One significant obstacle was the political pressure bearing down on him. Government officials, eager for a quick resolution, pushed for conclusive answers. But Walker knew that hasty conclusions would not serve justice. He needed time, but time was a luxury he didn't have. Walker also grappled with the barrage of theories and rumors that flooded the public domain. Each new theory seemed to lead the investigation down another rabbit hole, pulling resources and focus away from concrete evidence. The detective found himself spending as much time debunking false leads as he did pursuing viable ones. Another challenge was the sheer volume of information. Thousands of documents, hundreds of witness statements, and endless amounts of evidence needed to be sifted through. The task was overwhelming, and Walker felt the strain of it. As he navigated these challenges, Walker encountered several dead ends. Leads that initially seemed promising fizzled out, leaving him back at square one. One such dead end was a tip about a possible co-conspirator seen with Oswald before the assassination. After exhaustive investigation, it turned out to be a case of mistaken identity. The frustration of these dead ends was compounded by the internal struggles within his own team. The pressure of the case was taking its toll, and disagreements over the direction of the investigation were common. Walker had to keep his team focused and unified, but it was like trying to hold together a fraying rope. In the midst of these challenges, Walker received a glimmer of hope. A new piece of evidence emerged, a photograph that had been overlooked. It showed a part of Dealey Plaza not previously focused on in the investigation. Could this be the breakthrough he needed? As the chapter closes, Walker stands at a crossroads. The pressure to solve the case is immense, the obstacles are many, and the path ahead is unclear. Yet his resolve to find the truth is unshaken. Each challenge, each dead end, and each pressure only serves to strengthen his determination. The detective understands that the key to solving the mystery lies in perseverance. He knows that the answers he seeks are buried deep within the mountain of evidence and testimonies. With renewed focus, Walker prepares to delve back into the investigation, determined to uncover the truth, no matter how many obstacles stand in his way. The journey is far from over, and Detective James Walker is ready to face whatever lies ahead. Chapter 11. Unseen Forces. As Detective James Walker delved deeper into the investigation of President Kennedy's assassination, he found himself entangled in a web of potential conspiracies. These revelations not only complicated the case, but also made him question who he could trust. In his office, Walker sat surrounded by files and photographs, each telling a different part of the story. One file in particular caught his attention. It contained information about a meeting between several influential figures held in a private club a few weeks before the assassination. The contents of their conversation were unknown, but the mere fact that such a meeting occurred piqued Walker's interest. The deeper he dug, the more Walker realized that there were forces at play that were not immediately visible. There were hints of involvement by powerful entities, perhaps even government agencies. Could it be possible that the assassination was part of a larger plot, one involving high-level operatives? Walker's trust in his usual contacts began to wane. He started to feel that every piece of information he received might be tainted, part of a larger plan to mislead the investigation. The detective was accustomed to navigating the murky waters of crime, but this was different. He was now dealing with unseen forces, powerful and shadowy. One evening, an anonymous tip led him to a small, unassuming house in a quiet neighborhood. The informant claimed to have crucial information about the assassination. With caution, Walker approached the meeting, aware it could be a trap. The informant, a nervous man with darting eyes, spoke of a plot that went far beyond Oswald and Ruby. His tale was filled with intrigue, involving foreign powers and secret deals. Though Walker was skeptical, he couldn't ignore the possibility that there was some truth in this man's story. As the investigation progressed, Walker found himself isolated. His superiors were pressing for results, yet he felt he couldn't reveal the full extent of his suspicions. The more he uncovered about the potential conspiracies, the more he realized that his every move might be being watched. Walker's once clear path was now shrouded in uncertainty. Trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. He had to rely on his instincts and his experience as a detective. Every piece of evidence, every testimony, had to be examined through a lens of skepticism. One afternoon, as Walker was sifting through a pile of documents, he found a memo that had been misplaced. It was a communication between two government officials, discussing Oswald before the assassination. The content was vague, but it suggested that Oswald was known to more people in power than previously thought. As the chapter closes, Walker sits in his office, the weight of the case bearing down on him. The walls, once a source of clarity, now seemed to close in on him with their burden of secrets and lies. He realized that the path to the truth was more complex and dangerous than he had ever imagined. The detective knew he was facing unseen forces, powerful and elusive. Yet his resolve to uncover the truth about the assassination of President Kennedy was unshaken. Walker was determined to continue his quest, no matter how deep the conspiracy ran and no matter who he could or could not trust. The journey was fraught with danger and deception, but Detective James Walker was prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 12. Tangled Webs. In the depths of his investigation, Detective James Walker found himself unraveling the intricate and secretive past of Lee Harvey Oswald. As he sifted through the layers of Oswald's life, a complex web of relationships and hidden truths began to emerge. Oswald's background was a patchwork of contradictions and enigmas. Born in New Orleans, he had a troubled childhood marked by instability and hardship. As a young man, Oswald developed a keen interest in socialist ideologies, a fascination that would shape much of his later life. Walker delved into Oswald's time in the military. He had joined the Marines but had a mixed record. His proficiency in Russian was intriguing, given the Cold War tensions of the time. After his discharge, Oswald's journey took a surprising turn when he defected to the Soviet Union, a move that was almost unheard of for an American at the height of Cold War paranoia. In Russia, Oswald's life took on new dimensions. He married Marina, a Russian woman, and seemed to settle down. But after a few years, he grew disillusioned and decided to return to the United States with his family. Walker pondered over this phase of Oswald's life. What had driven him to Russia, and what prompted his return? Back in the United States, Oswald's behavior became increasingly erratic. He moved between cities, took up various jobs, and immersed himself in radical political activities. His name appeared in connection with pro-Castro organizations and other leftist groups. But how deep did these connections go? Were they the driving force behind his actions, or merely a cover for something more sinister? Walker discovered that Oswald's personal life was fraught with challenges. His marriage was strained, and he often isolated himself from those around him. This isolation seemed to fuel his radical beliefs, creating a cycle that pushed him further away from mainstream society. The detective also uncovered a network of contacts and acquaintances that Oswald had maintained. Some were mere passers-by in his life, while others seemed to have played more significant roles. Each name added a new thread to the already tangled web of Oswald's life. Amidst this complex background, Walker found it challenging to discern the true Oswald. Was he a lone wolf, acting on his own accord? Or was he influenced by others in his network? The detective realized that understanding Oswald's background was key to understanding his potential motive for the assassination. As the chapter closes, Walker sits in his office, surrounded by photographs, documents, and notes. Each a piece of Oswald's life story. The walls seem to whisper secrets of a man who was as enigmatic in death as he was in life. The tangled web of Oswald's relationships and secrets only added layers to the mystery. Detective James Walker knew that unraveling these threads was essential to solving the case. Each connection, each secret brought him closer to the truth. The journey through Oswald's past was intricate and perplexing, but Walker was determined to navigate through it. The answers were there, hidden in the tangled web of Lee Harvey Oswald's life, and Walker was resolute in his quest to uncover them. Chapter 13. The Bigger Picture. Detective James Walker, immersed in the labyrinth of the Kennedy assassination, began to sense the outline of a larger scheme, a plot that extended far beyond Lee Harvey Oswald. His investigation had revealed a complex network, one that entangled various power players in a shadowy dance. As Walker delved deeper, he found connections that pointed to a broader conspiracy. There were whispers of involvement by government agencies, hints of foreign influence, and traces of secret societies. Each clue seemed to open a door to a larger, more intricate room of the mystery. One significant lead was a series of confidential documents linking Oswald to various political figures. These documents suggested that Oswald's actions might have been influenced, or even directed, by individuals with significant power. The implications were staggering, and Walker tread carefully, aware that he was venturing into dangerous territory. Another intriguing piece of the puzzle was a report of a secret meeting between high-ranking government officials and unknown foreign agents. The content of this meeting was not clear, but its timing, just weeks before the assassination, was suspicious. Could this meeting have been where the plot was hatched? Walker also uncovered evidence of large sums of money being transferred through obscure channels. These transactions were traced back to influential businessmen with vested interests in political affairs. The detective wondered, were they funding the assassination? And if so, what was their motive? As he pieced together these fragments, Walker began to see a pattern. It was as if Oswald was just a pawn in a much larger game, a game played by powerful figures who operated from the shadows. The scope of the conspiracy was daunting, and Walker felt like he was only scratching the surface. Amidst these revelations, Walker faced skepticism from his superiors. They cautioned him against chasing shadows, urging him to stick to the tangible evidence. But Walker knew that to ignore these leads would be a disservice to the investigation and to the memory of President Kennedy. Walker also grappled with the ethical implications of his discoveries. Exposing such a vast conspiracy could shake the very foundations of the nation. He questioned whether the public was ready for such revelations, and whether justice could truly be served in the face of such immense power. As the chapter closes, Walker is seen standing in his office, a lone figure amidst a sea of files and photographs. He is a man at a crossroads, caught between his duty as a detective and the enormity of what he is uncovering. The bigger picture of the assassination was coming into focus, revealing a tapestry of intrigue and power that stretched far beyond a single gunman. Detective James Walker knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. Yet, his commitment to uncovering the truth was unwavering. He was ready to confront the larger scheme, to shine a light on the dark corners of power and influence. The journey was far from over, and Walker was determined to see it through, no matter what secrets he would uncover. Chapter 14. Race Against Time. In the heart of the bustling city, Detective James Walker was acutely aware of the ticking clock. The nation clamored for answers in the wake of President Kennedy's assassination, and the pressure to solve the case was mounting every day. Walker felt the urgency, a relentless push against the limitations of time and incomplete evidence. The detective's office had become a maze of evidence, a space where the past and present collided in a desperate search for truth. The walls, lined with photographs, maps and notes, seemed to echo the nation's demand for justice. Each day brought new challenges. Walker found himself sifting through an ever-growing pile of evidence, much of it contradictory or incomplete. The leads he had were like puzzle pieces from different puzzles, refusing to fit together into a coherent picture. One of the most significant challenges was the lack of conclusive evidence linking Oswald directly to the assassination. Despite the rifle and bullet casings found in the Texas school book depository, the connection to Oswald was circumstantial. The absence of a clear motive only added to the complexity. Walker also struggled with the sheer volume of witness testimonies. Each account was a thread in the vast tapestry of the case, but the threads often led to dead ends or tangled with one another, obscuring the truth rather than revealing it. The detective was acutely aware of the conspiracy theories circulating in the public domain. While some seemed far-fetched, others were plausible enough to warrant consideration. Walker knew that dismissing them outright could be a mistake, but investigating each one was a time-consuming process. As he raced against time, Walker also faced internal pressures. His superiors demanded progress reports, and the media scrutinized every move of the investigation. The detective felt like he was under a microscope, with every decision and action being questioned. In the midst of this whirlwind, Walker remained focused on the goal, solving the case. He spent long hours reviewing surveillance tapes, re-examining ballistic reports, and re-interviewing key witnesses. The detective knew that the smallest detail could be the key to unlocking the mystery. As the chapter closes, Walker is seen in his office, late at night, surrounded by the remnants of his day's work. His eyes are weary, but his determination is unwavering. He knows that he is in a race against time, with the nation's eyes on him, waiting for answers. Detective James Walker understands that solving the case is not just about bringing a killer to justice, it's about healing a nation's wound. The urgency to solve the case is palpable, but so is the struggle with the incomplete and complex evidence at hand. The journey to find the truth is far from over, and Walker is committed to seeing it through, no matter how daunting the task may be. Chapter 15. Revelations. The relentless pursuit of truth had taken its toll on Detective James Walker, but his resolve never wavered. Then, amidst the seemingly endless maze of leads and evidence, Walker made a breakthrough that reignited the investigation. It began with a piece of overlooked evidence, a photograph taken moments before the assassination. Upon closer examination, Walker noticed a shadowy figure in the background, partially obscured. This figure had not been accounted for in previous analyses. Determined to uncover the identity of this mysterious person, Walker set out on a meticulous journey. He cross-referenced the time and location of the photograph with witness statements and police reports. His efforts led him to a retired police officer who had been off duty and watching the motorcade that day. The retired officer's testimony was a revelation. He recalled seeing a man acting suspiciously in that area, a man he had never seen before. He described the man in detail, but in the chaos that followed the assassination, he had lost sight of him. Fueled by this new lead, Walker scoured through public records and old police files. The detective's persistence paid off when he found a match, a man with a criminal record who bore a striking resemblance to the officer's description. This man had connections to various political groups and had been in Dallas on the day of the assassination. Walker knew this was a significant development. He had uncovered a new suspect, one who could potentially be linked to the assassination plot. This discovery also opened the possibility that Oswald might not have acted alone. The investigation gained momentum. Walker and his team worked tirelessly, following this new lead. They uncovered more about the suspect's background, his political affiliations, and his whereabouts before and after the assassination. As the pieces of the puzzle started to fit together, Walker felt a sense of cautious optimism. This breakthrough brought a new perspective to the case and shed light on areas that had remained in shadow. Amidst this progress, Walker faced a critical decision: how to proceed with this newfound information. He knew the revelation of a potential co-conspirator would send shockwaves through the public and could potentially disrupt the existing narrative of the assassination. As the chapter closes, Walker is seen in his office, deep in thought. The walls around him, once a symbol of the overwhelming nature of the case, now served as a testament to his dedication. The detective understood that this breakthrough was a significant step toward uncovering the truth, but it also brought new complexities. Detective James Walker, now closer to understanding the truth behind one of the most significant events in American history, prepared himself for the next phase of the investigation. The revelations unearthed were just the beginning, and Walker was ready to follow the trail wherever it led. The quest for the truth about the assassination of President Kennedy was entering a new, decisive phase, and Walker was at the forefront, leading the charge. Chapter 16. The Final Piece. The journey of Detective James Walker through the labyrinth of President Kennedy's assassination was reaching its dramatic conclusion. In the headquarters of the investigation, a room filled with officials, journalists, and key figures awaited Walker's final presentation. Walker stood before them, a figure of resolve amidst a sea of expectant faces. He cleared his throat and began to unravel the complex tapestry of the case. He spoke of Lee Harvey Oswald, the man at the center of the investigation, his life, his ideologies, and his actions. He then moved on to the significant breakthrough, the discovery of the shadowy figure in the photograph, the retired police officer's testimony, and the subsequent identification of the new suspect. Walker detailed how this suspect's background and connections added a new dimension to the case, suggesting the possibility of a broader conspiracy. Walker presented the evidence meticulously. He spoke of the ballistic analysis, the trajectory of the bullets, and the timelines that were painstakingly reconstructed. He explained how each piece of evidence was examined, each lead pursued, and each theory tested. The detective addressed the theories of a larger plot, involving government agencies and powerful entities. He explained that while there were indications pointing to broader involvement, conclusive evidence remained elusive. The truth, it seemed, was shrouded in layers of complexity and secrecy. Walker's presentation was a masterclass in investigative detail. He laid out the facts, separating them from fiction and speculation. But as he spoke, it became clear that the case, while partly solved, still held unanswered questions. As the presentation drew to a close, Walker acknowledged these gaps. He expressed his commitment to continuing the investigation, to pursue the truth wherever it may lead. He spoke of the limitations they faced, the death of Oswald, the myriad of conflicting testimonies, and the shadow of time that had obscured some paths. The room was silent as Walker concluded. The audience was left with a sense of closure, yet an understanding that some aspects of the assassination might never be fully understood. The detective had provided answers, but the complete picture remained just out of reach. In the aftermath of the presentation, the media erupted with stories. Walker's findings were analyzed, debated, and discussed at length. The nation, while given some answers, continued to grapple with the larger implications of the assassination. As the chapter closes, Walker is seen in his office, a sense of accomplishment mixed with contemplation on his face. The investigation had been a journey not just for him, but for the entire nation. He had brought clarity to some aspects of the case, but the full truth remained a mosaic of elusive pieces. Detective James Walker, having presented his findings, knew that the story of President Kennedy's assassination would continue to be a subject of fascination and debate. The final piece of the puzzle may never be found, but his work had shed light on one of history's most enduring mysteries. The legacy of the investigation would be a testament to the pursuit of truth, no matter how complex or challenging the journey. As we come to the end of our captivating story, The Unveiling, Detective Walker and the Kennedy Case, we hope you've enjoyed this thrilling journey while improving your English skills. Remember, learning English through stories can be both engaging and effective. To explore more stories like this one, and to download free ebooks in PDF format, visit WooEnglish.com. There you'll find a treasure trove of resources designed to help you learn English while immersing yourself in engaging narratives. Whether you're a beginner or looking to enhance your language proficiency, WooEnglish offers a wide range of stories tailored to your learning level. So, don't miss out on this valuable opportunity to continue your language journey with WooEnglish. Download your free ebooks today and keep learning through stories.